Aunt Jenny by Melissa Birdie Jones. When you see a name etched in granite, beneath the accompanying dates and images of praying hands or flying doves, sometimes you'll see affectionate and reminiscent epithets. Mama, Bubba, devoted father, beloved wife. The subscript on the tombstone of Jane Brooks Johnson in Poplar Springs Cemetery has no such addendums. Instead, it simply reads, "At rest." But perhaps it should read, "At rest at last." For in her 98 years, if stories from those who knew her are to be believed, she never rested a day in her life. And if ghost stories are to be believed, that engraving on Aunt Jenny's tombstone is a lie. Born Elizabeth Jane Baker in Kentucky in 1826, she was married at 14 to an older man by the name of Willis Brooks. Together, they established a tavern and a small inn at a crossroads in Winston County, Alabama, in what is now Bankhead National Forest. And if running a business and surviving in the woods weren't enough, they also had 9 children, 6 boys and 3 girls. By all accounts, they kept to themselves and minded their business. And if that had been all, Aunt Jenny might have lived and died with only the reputation of never turning away a person in need or having a knack for knowing just the thing for your aching back or upset stomach. Such was the way of scrappy Alabama mountain folk back then. Without the sprawling cotton plantations to oversee and global trade to contend with, most people in the area of Winston County were disinterested in matters of national politics and economics. There were mouths to feed. There was wild forest to tend and local affairs to deal with. So needless to say, when the Civil War broke out, they were not keen on getting involved. To them, it was a conflict purely for the profit of agricultural industrialists, a rich man's war, but one that those rich men wanted poor men to fight for them so they could keep their cheap labor force of slaves on their plantations. That's not to say the poor whites of the Old South were all altruists. Rather, many saw slavery as a way plantation owners could get labor without paying wages for it, a sort of landlocked version of offshoring that kept the opportunities for both paid work and land ownership from impoverished whites. To be sure, there were those that objected to slavery on moral grounds, but whatever their motives, the mountain folk of Winston County were not at all sympathetic to the cause, even to the point of attempting to secede from the Confederacy and establish the free state of Winston. Of course, this did not go without reprisal from those who saw the war as a necessity to defend the freedom of the South. Bands of loosely organized vigilante militias formed throughout the fledgling Confederacy, operating with the blessing of the official Confederate Army. These home guards, as they were called, were to be the final line of defense against invading Union forces. But their duties until such an invasion were many and not entirely uniform or well regulated. Some of the home guard activities included policing dissidents, spying on enemy troop movement, and rounding up undesirables such as deserters and Yankee sympathizers for punishment, which was often immediate and lethal. Like others in the free state of Winston, the Brooks family was not interested in helping fight for the South's independence, and their recalcitrance brought a band of 8 men from the home guard to their doorstep. Accounts vary on what offense the militiamen sought to rectify. Some say Willis was helping house and triage Union soldiers and Confederate deserters, an endeavor Jenny was no doubt helping with, given her skill as a healer. Others say the Brooks family was dodging the taxes collected to fund the war, and some stories have it that the Home Guard had come to punish the men of the Brooks family for not fighting for the Confederacy, or perhaps to none too gently collect them for said duty. Whatever their reason, the visit from the Home Guard ended with Willis Brooks swinging limply from a tree and the eldest son, John, shot dead in the yard for trying to stop his father's lynching. And with a creak of rope and a crack of gunpowder, the mild-mannered Jane Brooks became the vengeful Aunt Jenny, for she did not mourn in the fashion of most. Her grief took the form of violent retribution. The story goes that she took her remaining 8 children, boys and girls alike, out into the yard where their slain father and brother lay in the grass. There, in the broad light of the sun, with her youngest on her hip, Jenny had her children wash their hands in the blood of their fallen kin and vow that they would not lay their mother's bones to rest until those 8 men from the home guard were dead by their hands. Aunt Jenny saw to it that her children were well equipped for the task she'd bound them to carry out. She trained them to shoot, trained them to survive in the mountains, and no doubt instilled in them a bone-deep fear of her wrath should they fail to uphold their blood oath. The facts of what transpired after this are shady, as feuds neighboring families, mismatched or missing records, and local legends shroud the truth. Some recountings continue to paint Aunt Jenny as a pillar of the rural Winston County community who saw to healing the sick and never missed a Sunday at the Missionary Baptist Church. But others contend that her desire for revenge, it changed her. There are claims that she kept score of their kills, cutting notches into her walking stick. Some say she had her children bring her the heads of the home guard as proof of their success. And in one such tale, she boils a skull down to the bone for use as an ashtray. In another, she uses the skull to wash her hands on her deathbed, breathing her last before the water could dry from her withered skin. And most chillingly of all, her children ultimately failed in their quest. The last member of the home guard group that murdered Willis Brooks wisely fled the area, never to be seen again. And Aunt Jenny nearly kept up her side of the bargain, outliving all but one of her 9 children and dying at the age of 98, oath still unfulfilled. Certainly enough to make anyone restless. Though the tale of the vengeance of Aunt Jenny is well known, so are stories of her self-sufficiency, generosity, and good character, blood oaths notwithstanding. Those who knew her claim that she kept to herself and looked out for those around her, including caring for stepchildren from a later marriage and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. A story goes that she was once asked about how she had enough money to live so comfortably out in the woods alone, and she replied, "I pay myself $20 a week to mind my own business." Perhaps if the home guard had minded their business and kept out of the woods in Winston County, the story of Aunt Jenny and the Brooks clan would have been a kinder one. But it was not to be. So if you don't tarry when you're passing by the ruins of the Brooks house in Bankhead National Forest, you won't draw her ire either. But stop for a spell, especially at night. You'll likely have a story to tell about green lights winking in the trees. Overstay your welcome there, and you won't be the first to hear the shrieks of a restless Aunt Jenny telling you to get off her property, lest she send her children after you.